Hello, you have tuned into hashtag This Is My City with your host, Tom Sommers of Caldwell Banker, Minnesota.
I'm coming home to you.
This week's episode of hashtag This Is My City is brought to you by Hi-Fi Hair and Records, where music is fashion. Located in downtown Minneapolis near Loring Park, you can call Johnny today for an appointment, 612-486-5900. Hello and welcome to another edition of hashtag This Is My City. Tonight I am joined by Mr. Marty Richie, who is the owner of the Heavy Metal Grill food truck, Food That Rocks. Hi, Marty.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you today?
Wonderful.
Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Being that this is a beginning podcast, people are still learning about it, and I want to just kind of go over a few quick things, that this is truly about our city and the different small businesses and different things that the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area has to offer. So this week I thought it would be really interesting, especially with the COVID and all of the stuff we've been through as a nation in the spring, to talk with someone who's out in the front lines that owns a food truck.
Absolutely.
So let's start with you growing up. You grew up in Bloomington, right?
Correct.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about growing up in Bloomington. Tell me about what you've seen that's changed over the years.
Wow, at one point it was the third largest city. I don't think it is anymore, but Bloomington, growing up in Bloomington was pretty amazing. It was Norman Rockwell-ish, if you may. It was, the suburbs, the suburbia at its best. There weren't a lot of scuffles and tuffles with kids. It was a cool time. I moved a little bit while living in Bloomington, but it was a great city,
And your mom lived there up until recent.
Correct. We got her out of Bloomington in 2019.
It seems like the history or the nostalgia piece of Bloomington still exists, because so many of those malls that I would go to growing up in the 80s still exist, or they look very much like they used to. But it seems like other elements of it have changed. Have you noticed that as well?
Well, you're talking to a kid that ran around the Met Center when he was, when it was closed. The Met Stadium, I should say, and I'm sorry. I got a job at the Met Center in Bloomington sweeping peanuts. So I could, I learned real quick. I'm like, well, I would like to go backstage and see some of these bands and wrestlers and all these acts. And I'm like, okay, so I got a job. And sweeping peanuts. So we'd sweep them to the end, they'd blow them to the bottom, shovel them, and off they go. So I worked about one day a week, but then Iron Maiden, Kiss, everybody would come in town, and I'd come in the back, I'd grab somebody's time card, I'd punch it, and go inside, and
You're like,
run around backstage.
I can't even tell you how many people have got some kind of a story like that, where they somehow snuck in, or they were working there or whatever, just to get access to be around the music. And that's a big part of your life, obviously, because of what you named your restaurant.
Correct.
So before you got into the restaurant business and the food truck business, what did you do? So you graduated from Kennedy?
Kennedy, 87. Correct.
Okay. And what did you do?
Well, my first job, I was a go-getter. I guess if you want to go all the way back, I was peddling candy in 7th grade.
Okay.
I learned real quick that candy sold. I would go to Holiday grocery store in Bloomington, and I would buy Brock's watermelon sparkles for $1.49 a pound, and I would sell them 5 for $1. I would buy Bubble Yum and Bubblicious when that first came out, and I would sell that for $1 a piece. And so I was the candy man in high school.
So you had a side hustle even when you were a kid?
Yes, in junior high. Yes, exactly. That was junior high. In high school or before high school, I got bored of that, and I wanted a job. I had paper routes, so I oddly enough, my first job was the Star and Tribune. I was a paper boy, a delivery boy for a Star and Tribune.
I did that too.
The
big yellow case cards.
I didn't have the card. No, you had the luxury. I had the bag.
I had that too.
I had the yellow bag with the shiny stickers on it. And then I had you go to the door, collect, and you'd collect the money, and you were basically their slave. My last official job was the Pioneer Press.
Really? Doing what?
Before I did this, I was an account executive for the Digital Automotive Kind of like Car Soup. I worked for Car Soup for quite a few years. So it was St. Paul Pioneer Press's version of Car Soup.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that to me before, that was one of the things that you did, was you were working in digital marketing for quite some time with the cars. What did you learn from that about work in general?
Digital marketing was an interesting arena. I mean, my career started at White Castle. My first official job, I lied on the application, said I was 16 years old. I got a job at White Castle, and I was doing bar rush back when people would come in at 2 o'clock in the morning drunk, and they just wanted food. And White Castle was the only game in town. So, here I'm this 15-year-old kid, slinging burgers and taking orders and taking grief from these drunks. So when that evolved to other restaurants, with I learned really quick that the harder you work, the more money you made, and Steak and Ale, Red Lobster, Mr. Steak. I mean, I worked at them all. You work your way up the ladder. But digital marketing came to me. I left to move to Florida for a couple of years. I came back and got a job at a dealership. And I was peddling cars at Bloomington Chrysler. And
Where was that located?
90th and Penn.
Okay.
And that was back late 90s, sorry.
Okay.
When nobody was going to buy a car off the internet, and the internet was this wee little child. And I said, give it to me. I see the potential in this. This is where the world is going. So eventually I was selling more cars than the top sales guy. It drove them nuts. I got the title Marty.com. While in this industry for 15 years, Freeway Ford, Bloomington Chrysler, Ridgeville Bloomington Honda. I mean, I went to a lot of dealerships as a kind of a gun for hire to help them jumpstart their internet department, because they all started to figure out, this is very important, we got to figure out what to do, and they didn't know what to do.
So how did they find you, or how did they figure out that it was you? Were they going onto the internet, seeing these ads and going, okay, how do we do this? And then they ask around about you, or how did they find you?
So part of my secret was, if you can imagine your business and your listings that your company has for your realty or real estate. What I did is I worked a deal out with Auto Uplink, and basically Auto Uplink was a company. Mike Baker owned Auto Uplink, and what they would do is they would come out and they would take pictures of the vehicles, because at the time I was doing all the pictures, and they said, well, we can bring Auto Uplink in, and you don't have to do all the pictures anymore. You can go sell the cars, and we'll hire them at $20 a car. So they would come in, they would take pictures of the cars, and they would upload the pictures to the cars to Cars.com, Car Soup, Auto Trader, wherever we were subscribed. So what I would do is I would put on the bottom of each picture, every picture, call Marty.com, 612-310-7266. Every one of them. So you couldn't go anywhere you couldn't look at any of our cars without seeing my name and number.
And I suppose because it was on all of the different websites that are like social media sites in a way, you had no rules or problems with any of that, so you could literally market yourself any way you want.
My phone was nonstop. Christmas, New Year's, Easter, 1 in the morning, they would call.
So why did you walk away from that if it was going well?
The industry changed.
Okay,
the
what
industry
changed?
I think what changed a lot was information became more available, like invoice.
Yeah.
And they would buy a Jeep, or they would buy an F-150 or what it was, and you were fighting for invoice. And at that point, you're paid on the gross that you'd make from the profits, but with when it was getting down to invoice, it was just you're working for $100.
Right.
And just basically the money wasn't there. The salesmen were mad. I was Top Gun. They dismantled the department, and they just started handing out the leads to all the salespeople.
Yeah, so then
they felt was best.
You knew it was time to move on.
Right. So I made the next step. Next logical step was to carsoup.com.
Okay.
And
so During that time frame, because you said you left and went to Florida for a couple of years, why did you leave?
Got married, moved
Okay.
to Florida. That didn't work. Came back.
Okay. So when your marriage ended in Florida, did you ever consider going somewhere else, or did you feel like this was home?
No, I always felt like this was home. You know, I distinctly remember in Florida, I managed a Hooters in Florida in St. Pete. And I distinctly remember every time Lynyrd Skynyrd's Sweet Home Alabama came on, I always slid in Minnesota. You know, there's really no place like home. And Minnesota is and has always been home to me. You know,
Yeah.
it's, you know, I'm not much of a hunter. I'm not much of a canoer, you know, boater. I enjoy it. I love it. But there's just something about the state that draws you back. You know?
Yeah, well, and it's interesting to me in listening to you talk how you had these different jobs in high school, and many of them were in restaurants, yet you go to Florida, you manage a restaurant, but then when you come back here, you don't open a restaurant or work in a restaurant, you go into
The automotive industry.
Yeah, so why? I mean, how did that happen?
You know, I think you just get burned out after a while. You know, I think the restaurant industry ran its course for me. I think the only step left for me after where I reached was ownership. And I think, you know, the dealership world changed. Right now, they're order takers. You know, the dealers, if you go into a dealership today, God bless them all, I love them, but, you know, there's not a lot of real salesmen anymore. They're kind of order takers, you know. So it's kind of a lost art, unfortunately. But I think I kind of ran my course with restaurants, and I think I hit the pinnacle when I had the food truck and the bar and restaurant, and.
Well, and it's interesting to me how sometimes people paint a salesperson as like such a dirty job, but it isn't. There is an art to selling, whether you're selling cars or food or homes or whatever. And you can do it with honesty and integrity. You don't have to be like the people that make whatever industry you're in look so bad. And I think that that's one of the things that I've always been impressed with watching you is how much care you put into the food you serve and the pride that you take in what you do.
Right.
And it comes through with all of that.
It really does. You're right. And I, you know, honestly, if I go to give one secret away, it's 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them accordingly. You know.
Yeah.
Listen to what they're saying. Listen to what they want. Find out what they want. Don't tell them what they want. You know. I mean.
That's really good advice. Find out what they want. Don't tell them, because that seems like a recipe for disaster. You know, with a lot of different businesses, they're not looking at the needs of the community or the needs of the particular customers or clients. They're looking at what they think they should need or what they think they should want.
This is my first menu. None of that on there is my greatest hits that I like. My menu, when I first opened up a restaurant or food truck, was what sold. What I didn't. It wasn't about what I wanted. It was about what sold.
Right.
Too many people make it about themselves. You know.
Yeah.
And again, back to the dealer world, dealerships are very vain. You know, how many dealerships do you see that don't have the owner's name right up there?
Yeah.
You know.
That's a good
and I
point.
understand a lot of it's branding. You know, but you know, dealers love to hear their name. Denny Hecker was.
Yeah.
He was the king of that.
Yes, he is. Now he's the king of Cell Block D.
No, he's out.
Oh, is he out? Okay.
Yeah, he's out. Yeah.
So then the car soup thing ran its course.
Yeah.
And
Oddly enough, Denny Hecker was one of my accounts.
okay.
Yeah, $30,000 a year leaves your book and
Yeah, that changes things,
Trouble.
doesn't it?
$30,000 a month. I mean, sorry.
Well, okay, so then you come to your end at that, and then how do you then make the transition from what you were just doing back into the restaurant business, being that it kind of had run its course for you? What was your first thoughts? Was it a food truck?
You know, honestly, it's interesting. History always repeats itself. We know that. And I was sitting on a couch one day, and I wasn't happy with the Pioneer Press. The writing was on the wall. It was hero today, zero tomorrow. What have you done for me today? You could close $1 million deal today, and tomorrow it's, what have you done today?
Yeah.
So I got tired of that atmosphere and that culture, and I sitting on my laptop, and a pop-up, a little banner, a little pop-up from entrepreneur.com, and it was 10 low cost of startup businesses. So I clicked on it, which, being in marketing, I don't ever click on banners because they take you to naughty places. Mm-hmm. So I clicked on this because it was entrepreneur.com. How can you go wrong with that? And food truck was one of the low cost of startup businesses. Okay. Well, I had 15 years of marketing. I had 15 years in the kitchen. I was kind of built for this. And so,
Yeah.
I started looking into it, and at the time, Minnesota had just opened up food trucks. Food trucks have been around since the beginning of time. They were at the Coliseums. They were just carts with horses on them.
Well, yeah. Look at New York
Bananas
City.
and
The
apples.
guys that are serving up, hot dogs and all that.
So it's
Yeah.
not a new thing, but Minnesota's kind of behind the times with a lot of this stuff. But in 2010, middle of 2010, I think it was, they had just started allowing food trucks. So we launched in 2011 with our truck, and I was working at the Pioneer Press when I was working the truck, and I remember that they were kind of laughing at me. Oh, you're gonna open a food truck, huh? And we went and did zombie pub crawl.
Downtown Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was actually on West Bank, and it was us and 2 other trucks with 10,000 people. And
Wow.
Yeah, we didn't have a ticket system because I don't need tickets, and
So part of the learning curve.
yeah. So I'm cooking, and of course I'm cooking a complex menu. I'm not cooking something simple because I want to make a culinary statement. And I remember cooking, and as I'm standing there chopping, I'd look back, and all I could see were zombies. Drunk and hungry, looking up at me.
Yep.
With blood, and they have makeup everywhere. And I was like, oh God. And I'm looking at the tickets, and I'm asking her what we need, and she's telling me, and she's starting to write stuff down, and we're buried, absolutely buried. And it came to a point where we just started throwing food out the door. And I know we probably gave away half the truck. So we're going and going. 3 a.m. comes around, and somebody unplugged the truck. Thing goes down, or the generator stopped. Every problem that could happen happened. Cop pokes his head in the door and he goes, "Hey, how long are you going for?" I go, "I don't know. You want me to keep feeding the drunks, or you want us to pack up?" Keep going. All right. So we finished the night. We went to bed, and I think I slept for 3 days. It seems like. Went to work Monday, and my boss was, "Oh, what'd you do?" And I threw him a bank bag, stacked about that thick, about $5,000 worth of bills. I threw it in his lap, and he kind of fiddled through it, and he didn't know what to say after that.
Of course, because he was waiting
I can make
to rip you.
$5,000 in a day. You
Yeah.
know? And and that doesn't happen every day, believe me.
Yeah.
So
You work hard for it, but
oh, absolutely.
so food trucks to me are interesting because everybody wants one.
Yeah.
Because it's like so many other jobs, they just see the glory part of it or the fun.
Tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, they don't see all of the preparation and the work.
Right.
So how did you even get started? Okay, you click on this link and you see that it's a lower cost way to start a business. Then you start looking for a truck, and then did you modify it? Walk me through a little bit of that.
So I started looking for a truck. So of course you go to Craigslist and you go to all these various places and you start looking out of state, you look in state. Minnesota is probably one of the strictest states with regards to food laws, which is great. I'm great with that. Other states, not so much to the east. Some of the things like porous cupboards. You can't have wooden cupboards because the wood will absorb, bacteria and stuff.
Yeah.
And everything has to be stainless steel. And so you learn this stuff and what to find and what to look for as you're going. I heard the expression today, kind of like building an airplane while you're flying, I knew I wanted to launch fast. So there was one guy in town who was the only game in town, and he was very expensive. So that was not an option for me. So I found a builder. I found a guy accidentally that could do a portion of what I needed. And then he's like, well, why don't I just do it all? And I said, okay.
Yeah.
So do it all. So I found a truck in Chicago. First time I actually found a truck in Miami.
Ooh.
Flew out to Miami at the hotel that you and I at across the street, the Rio, the Red Hotel that we walked by with Kyle.
Yes.
Yeah. So I stayed at that hotel. The guy picked me up. I went and looked at this truck, opened the door, got inside. I got a one-way ticket to Florida. Okay. So I'm going to drive this back.
Right. Oh, yeah. Figuring it's going to work out.
And I opened a refrigerator door, and roaches are in there. Done.
So the pictures looked a lot better than what it really was.
They did. So I'm done. I've already signed out. It's just, you're not going to come back from that. If they're in there, they're in there. I don't care if it's Minnesota cold or not. I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, that's just
So
common sense.
one-way ticket back, end up finding a truck in Chicago. Find a truck in Chicago, same thing. One-way ticket out to Chicago, drive the truck back, the sliding doors, bang, and I got it. These noise-canceling Sonys. One of those noise-canceling one we keep up. It was so loud. Got back, found a builder, built it, found a graphic team, got the graphics done, and the rest is history.
So I put it in a song. Whisper in my ear another useless story. Whisper in my ear what I already know. Whisper in my ear another useless story. Whisper in my ear what I already know.
So you're finding some success with your new food truck. Everything's getting rolling. You're a year or so, 2 years in maybe. And then one fateful night,
Yeah.
walk us through.
Well, we were at Northfield, Darren and Lana's house, friends of ours. They had a trailer, a little bitty yellow trailer, and decided to make that leap into the food truck world. So they built a food truck, Outlaw Grill. They were actually in the midst of building it at the time.
And they're still in business now.
They're still in business, yep. They have a restaurant up in the outlet mall. I forget where it is, up north.
Albertville?
Albertville, yeah.
Okay.
St. Martin is where they have the restaurant. So we were at their house hanging out, and we had left. Sam, my daughter, gave me a call, and I was just making the turn onto Cedar from Northfield, and she said the truck blew up. And I was like, wait, what? She said, I don't know what happened. The truck blew up, and hung up.
And you're like, okay, she's obviously.
But she's a prankster. She's the one that would put baby oil in the shower and laugh when you wipe out. I mean, she's a prankster. So I'm like, she went to something like that, it's. So I called her back. I go, don't hang up on me. Wait, what happened? She goes, I don't know. The truck blew up.
Wow.
I'm away. So we did about 100 up Cedar till we got there. Pulled up to the cul-de-sac, or not the cul-de-sac, the turn, and police everywhere. The neighborhood is lit up.
And this was in Lakeville.
In Lakeville, correct. And I remember the cop waving me off, going, you can't come down here, you can't come down here. And I pulled right up to the squad car, shut the truck off, threw him the keys, and said, it's my house. And I went running, and I remember asking. I think it was pretty easy to figure out who I was when I came running into the scene, because I just kept trying to look, where's Sam, where's Sam, where's Sam?
Yeah.
And people
Yeah.
kind of zero in on you and find out, real quick who you are. So I found Sam. She was at a neighbor's house. She was safe. And then we got we got the first look at the house, and the only thing that was left of the truck, I couldn't see the truck. The only thing that was left of the truck was the steering wheel and the dashboard and the seat. Everything else was gone. Everything else had flowered out. So the front windshield went over a person's house, the neighbor across the street's house. The right side, which is the service window,
Yep.
blew apart. The tree went up into another tree, so the service window is actually hanging in a tree. The left side blew into the other neighbor's tree, and shrapnel was stuck in like a tornado had hit. Like,
It's a miracle
beams
someone
had
didn't get hurt.
impaled. And then the back is what went into the house.
Right.
So the back went into the garage, and the garage, it hit the garage door, it blew the garage door open, welded the front door shut, and blew up the inside of the house. So the walls had areas where they imploded and exploded, if that makes sense. So the windows downstairs blew out, the windows upstairs
Blew out.
blew in.
Oh, blew in. Okay, yeah.
So
'cause
they
it
went
was reverse.
backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had an external force coming at you and an internal force happening at the same time,
Wow.
coming through the door. So you had this interesting
And no one was
forensics.
hurt,
Nobody was hurt.
which is a miracle.
But
So
I
not
didn't
only-
know that.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there talking to my daughter, trying to find out what's going on, what happened, what'd you do? Did you do something?
Yeah.
She used to go in the truck. We'd back the truck up to the house. She'd go to the truck. She'd grab a Gatorade or a pop, and she'd go back in the house. So she very well could have been there when it blew up. Thank God she wasn't. But
Wow.
I didn't know at that time. I didn't know what happened or if anybody was hurt. So, the police were like, "Well, we're still going door to door, finding out if everybody's okay, if anybody was hurt." Everybody was fine.
Which is a
Nobody
miracle.
was hurt. Next was, where are the dogs? Because they sleep under the window
Yeah.
where this happened.
Yeah.
And they found the dogs. They're two little chihuahuas. They found them under the bed and not very happy.
Oh, yeah, I can only imagine.
So I think Toby still has PTSD from this. But
Yeah.
But yeah, after that it was just try and rebuild your world. I mean,
So what was the feeling like once you realized that everyone was safe, Sam was okay, but now you're standing with this decimated business in your front yard, and I'm sure all the neighbors looking at you like you are an idiot.
right.
How do you take that on?
Well, I mean, essentially we lost the business, which was the source of income. We lost the house. The house was uninhabitable. I think I just made that word up.
Works for me.
Yeah. You couldn't live in the house. The house was destroyed. So you lose everything all at once. Thank God it wasn't her, that I didn't lose her, because I don't know where I'd be today. But it's scary losing everything at once, losing everything altogether. You don't know what you're going to do. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So we got a chance to walk through the house real quick, and it was almost like a tornado, is the best way I could describe it. I mean, everything was off the wall, cupboards were emptied, glass. I mean, it was just, the walls were pushed in, and it was, so we had to get people out to board the house up. so people wouldn't come and loot the house. And
Right, because of course there's always going to be some jerk that's going to come in and try and rob what you have.
so we drove around looking for a hotel at about 3 a.m. after getting drilled by these detectives and fire chiefs and state fire chiefs and the fire chief, the fire inspector that did the Philadelphia explosion. That was one of the first ones, was there on the scene pretty fast. They flew him in immediately. And of course they've got to look from an investigation looks from the inside out, and then they come back. Could this be malicious? Could this be, somebody trying to, fraud an insurance company, and
Right, yeah, they have to look at
got to
everything.
work their way out and go, okay, who doesn't like him, and and so on and so forth, and then kind of come back in. So he grilled on us pretty hard with information, and it was an exhausting night. I remember driving around looking for a hotel that would accept us and dogs at 3 a.m. and none do. So we finally found one, and got in there about 4 a.m. and laid down to about 7, and my phone was just, it was just.
Oh, yeah, because then by then it was hitting the morning news.
Fox 9, Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 11. I had calls while I was getting interviewed after the explosion. While I was getting interviewed, I got a call from Care 11 asking, they left a message asking about the explosion and that they wanted to talk to me. I woke up the next day, this, pseudo celebrity, and
But for the wrong reasons.
for the wrong reasons. I was in the middle of opening up a restaurant in downtown Lakeville, and of course, the assumptions start flying.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he blew up the truck because he's opening a restaurant, and
Yeah.
I had the funds. The funds were already there. The restaurant was already taken care of and paid for, so we had already started that venture. But it was a very surreal experience.
So at the end of the day then, did they ever determine what caused the explosion?
So we have a complex simple system is what they called it. So we had an undermount tank. A lot of the food trucks have these external tanks that sit on the back.
Yeah, you see them, the propane
Cylinders,
tanks,
yep. I didn't like that idea when I first built my truck. If you look at the beginning pictures, you'll see two 40-pound tanks on back, and I had those removed right away. I just used them just to get through it. But I didn't like that idea because I was always afraid of getting rear-ended.
Well, yeah, because that would be bad.
Well, you're rear-ending a bomb.
Yeah.
And with people texting, and I was generally concerned. So as soon as I could, I mounted an RV cylinder under the truck, under the driver's side.
Oh, literally underneath the truck. Okay.
Yeah. So it was protected by a floor, which is the strongest part of a truck, of a step van, because the UPS or Snap-on, the floors are very, very strong. So if there ever was an explosion, it's not going to hurt anybody inside.
Blows down.
The impact's going to go down, and it's going to protect people. The back tanks, especially with the Philadelphia, that went out, and it acted kind of like a daisy cutter, and the flames just went straight out and hurt a lot of people. So we tucked it underneath. So we had a valve that would open and close that, and then I had a valve inside the truck. And what they determined is all three of the burners on the gas burner were in the on position, which for me I knew was wrong because I never used 3. I always used 2. I never used that fourth one. That fourth one was, and most cooks will understand this, you have zones on your grill, and you work with a hot zone, and as you get something ready, you shove it off to the right to a cool zone, and sit there, and it doesn't get cold, and then you pull from it. So it's a typical cook thing. So when I knew all three of those burners were on, I knew something was wrong. Somebody had monkeyed with it.
Yeah.
So what they said was, the guy that came in, the first guy was from Travelers Insurance. He was amazing. He was like Monk. You ever watch Monk?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was awesome. I watched him, and he sat in the yard, and he was like doing all this stuff, and he's, trying to figure out how it happened. It was cool watching.
Interesting.
The state, Travelers, city all determined that there was a third party on board. And what happened was the burners were in the on position, leaking gas, and the refrigerator cycled. And when the refrigerator cycled, boom, it was the igniter.
So they do believe someone did it, but they just don't know who it was.
It was listed as a John Doe.
Interesting.
They said that Hollywood could attempt to do this explosion 1,000 times and never cut it, and never
Really?
make it happen, never recreate it.
That's crazy. So that's how.
That kind of ruled me out.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to endanger your daughter to make
Yeah,
a buck. Blow your
yeah, that
house up
doesn't
and-
make sense.
I'm going to lose everything for a buck. But
some
there was a lot of bad things said. Pioneer Press was not kind to me, oddly enough, as I was one of their.
Yeah, it's got to be hard to keep your mouth shut because that doesn't do you any good either. You just have to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
So you get through all of this. You're working on opening the Heavy Metal Grill, which was in downtown Lakeville.
Mm-hmm.
And what was it that made you want to open a physical brick and mortar restaurant?
I knew better. A little bit of it was ego. A little bit of it was wanting to, just wanting to. I remember Care 11 did a poll, and they asked, "What food truck would you like to see most turned into a brick and mortar?" And we had won by 80-90%. I mean, it was
Wow, that's
was
huge.
unbelievable. The amount of people that voted for us. I never knew that people liked us that much. So it was kind of flattering,
Well, of
and I
course.
was
How
like,
could it not be?
Wow, is there a demand?
Yeah.
Do I not see this? Do I need to pay attention to something? Is there a demand? So I started looking into places. We looked at Saddle Shop below Leo's South, or
Yep.
to the left of Leo's South. We looked at a lot of restaurants across the city, and it was, downtown Lakeville. I remember Ace Hardware had just left, and they'd moved, and that building was vacant for a while. And I'm like, let me call them.
Yeah. Well, and at the time too, Lakeville had Babes, and that was pretty much it. Now
it.
it's an explosion of a bunch of different
Right.
places, but at the time it seems reasonable to go into your city locally. You can keep your eye on it. You're close by, and there was a need.
Right.
So what was the biggest challenge? Because some of the people that are watching this will want to know about the food truck, but before we go back to running and operating the food truck, I want to know, what were the challenges of opening a restaurant?
You don't know what you don't know, I can sum it up with that. We initially, I initially wanted to open up as an offshoot of the food truck. You walk in, you stand in line, you put your order, you grab your order, and you're out.
Okay.
Or we had tables and you sat and hung out. Then I got dumb or arrogant, I'm not sure which it was, but I decided to let's do a bar. Okay, we'll do beer and wine. The license is relatively inexpensive. So I said, well, I'll build a bar, I'll build a horseshoe bar, so people can have conversations across. You can eat your meal there. We'll put some picnic tables in the restaurant. Grab your order, and off you go. And then I got the bright idea to go full liquor, which was an additional $8,000 in licensing.
Right.
And it just snowballed from there. It just kept going and going and going.
Do you think that was your first critical mistake, was going full liquor and not just
Yes.
staying at beer and
Yes. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I also think Lakeville wasn't ready for heavy metal grill. Lakeville people like the word Lakeville, and and I've lived here for a long time, 2002. I love Lakeville. I grew up in Bloomington. I love Lakeville, but they love to hear that name. So I think if I were honest, if I were to call it Lakeville Bar, things would have been different.
But do you believe also that if you would have just stayed with beer and wine, that you probably would have had to get some local beer in there more so to fill the void? Or do you think a restaurant, regardless of whether it's heavy metal grill or it's a place serving burgers, whatever it might be, can survive on the regular beer that anyone can go
We
to
had
the liquor
125
store?
different beers.
Okay.
So we had 125 different, 10 more on tap, the rest were cannon bottles.
Yeah.
So we had a huge variety. We had just come from the brewery scene. We were the brewery kings back in the day. A lot of the trucks are still doing breweries. We've stepped away from that, but we did breweries nonstop. Whether it's a Tuesday or a Saturday, we were at breweries. So we had a lot of relationships with these breweries. So we would bring 612 Brew, we would bring their beer in, put it on tap, bottle cans. So we were kind of that craft beer outlet. We knew a brewery was going to come next to us as well. So
Yeah, which eventually did, and then another one, and
Right.
there is, like I said, there's
right.
there's
So
a
we
lot
embraced that.
So when you opened that restaurant, you kind of gave the food truck a break to a certain degree, because it's hard to do both.
Yeah, so the food truck was really put on hold for almost a year, and I think I don't know if it was survival, if it was yearning for the truck, but I missed the truck. The original plan was always run the restaurant, food truck will back it up. The restaurant's slow, food truck will make up for the difference. If
Right.
food truck's slow in the winter, restaurant will cover it.
Makes sense. I
So-
mean, it sounds logical.
Right. So that was always the plan. So when 50% of my plan went up in smoke, pun intended, you had to scramble to kind of change things and make sure things, worked. So I think that's where the bar kind of evolved from is do I want to take on Babes? Because really, I was the first one to say, all right, let's go toe to toe. Now, this is definitely David and Goliath, because Babes is the 800-pound gorilla in
Yes.
Lakeville. And,
Yes.
I never wanted to disrespect them or try and go toe to toe with them, but I definitely wanted to open up in the same market and go after the same crowd. So I think that was dangerous. I think I learned a lot with that. No matter what people say or do, they're creatures of habit. And they loved coming in, they loved the food, they loved the atmosphere, they loved the selection, they loved the tall beers, the long pours, they loved everything about the place, but they always gravitated back.
Yeah.
And it was something it was hard to figure out how to attract that crowd. They're creatures of habit.
So you made the conscious decision to close the restaurant and go back to the food truck. But what did you consider, or why did you close?
My heart was always with the truck. I mean, that's, I'll be quite honest with you, that's where the money's at, but that's where I felt most comfortable. I learned real quick when I sold the restaurant to Lisa Enrico, she made a comment to me and she goes, "This bar was built by a cook." And I went, okay, I won't argue at all. You're absolutely right.
Which is now it's Alibis.
It's the Alibi now, correct,
Okay.
downtown Lakeville. But it was interesting that she noticed that, and I've always been very upfront with my shortcomings and where I would have or where I should have made changes. I'm not a bartender. I learned that real fast. That was definitely my weakness. I'll make you a Captain Coke screwdriver and I'll pour your beer, but I'm not a bartender. I'm not going to go pour out an old fashioned.
Well, and you like cooking for people too. That's part of your passion.
Right. So where a lot of this went south was about a year after the restaurant opened. We had a lot of success. I lost a couple of cooks in back, which if anybody spent any time in the restaurant industry, that's your backbone. So I spent probably 6 to 8 weeks in the back every day, open to close.
Yeah, that's a lot of hours.
That's 9 to 10 every day, doing all the ordering, and then of course you're trying to manage the front of the house. It was very challenging, and
I think that's sometimes what some people forget is when you go out on your own, and it doesn't matter whether you're selling real estate or you have a food truck or you own a landscaping business, when you're starting this out and you're building this, you're wearing all the hats.
Right.
Because again, they see the glory piece of it. They don't see the hard work. So like in my industry, everyone watches HGTV and they're like, oh, it'll be fun to drive around and show people houses. Well, yeah, it is. It's fun to help people find a home.
that's all you do.
But that's only 10% of what I do.
Right.
So I think it was important that you mentioned that not only are you cooking, but you're managing the front and you're ordering everything because it doesn't just order itself.
Right.
And so you had employees, but what was the deal then?
So, we were paying our cooks anywhere from, 15 to 18 bucks an hour. We couldn't keep them. It was very challenging.
Okay.
They didn't show up. They didn't want to work. We had front of the house problems. I had a couple of bartenders that were, let's just say they were stealing, and I couldn't prove it. I'm not a confrontational person. I'm not going to come grab somebody and.
And that's the downside too. Most people I've met that have a small business have been stolen from.
Yes, and it's hard because for me, Lisa and Rico run a bar the way it should be run. They're very good with managing the people and communicating with them and setting the expectations. I was like, my style was a little bit different. Here's the job. I'll let you know what I expect of you, and I don't want to talk about it again. It's not that I want help. Yeah. Because I would bust tables, and people, are you the owner? I'm like, no, I'm the busboy. So I mean, I was kind of a behind the scenes kind of guy. I didn't mind interacting with everybody, but I was always kind of the behind the scenes guys. But Lisa and Rico, they do a really good job, and they get really quality people. And my first crew was amazing. My first crew that I hired from when the place was empty, it was a box. They were amazing, and then stuff changed. And it was hard. And I lost, like I said, when I lost the back of the house, that was just kind of the beginning of the end. So I knew I had to find a way out, because the writing was kind of on the wall. So we put the place up for sale. We had a couple, we had one food truck that reached out to us that we got very close with, and that didn't come to fruition. We had a customer that wanted to buy it, and
That didn't work out?
That didn't work out. That got really ugly. And Lisa and Rico came in at the end. There were two little angels that came in at the end. Lisa and Rico spent a good portion of their life behind a bar. So they'd already had a bar and a following in Farmington. So they did. They were a great choice. They came in. They were just. We sold on December 23rd. They were open January 1st for New Year's.
Wow, that's fast.
They redesigned, they rebranded, they made the changes that they had to make. They front of the house, back of the house. I mean, they were ready to go.
Well, and then you could walk away with a clear conscience that you did what you needed to do. So now you're back on the truck. I want to talk a little bit about the truck because, again, it's like I said at the beginning, it seems like so many people want to own a food truck. So I want to ask you some questions about this food truck. First off, people I know are probably wondering how you got the name. So tell people, because it's a really interesting play on words, because it's the heavy metal grill. Grills are made of metal, but you love metal or heavy metal music. So it was a crossover of the two. So how did you choose the name?
And that's really what it was. I looked at Hard Rock Cafe, and I've always loved the Hard Rock Cafe. It was a really cool concept, and I just wanted to do something, on a smaller scale, a little different, and again with that play on words, the heavy metal grill. So, the Food That Rocks kind of followed. Literally almost after I'd thought about the name, Food
It's
That
perfect.
Rocks, kind of followed. So it just felt good. It felt right.
Okay.
And I definitely believe in it.
Yes, you do. Well, you got to be all in when you own something.
Yeah, people get Vikings and twins and all sorts of tattoos. I'm like, oh, that doesn't pay your bills like this one does.
True. True. Well, so you had pointed over to your very first menu. It's changed many times, and it's actually changed several times just since we've known each other. So it seems to me from an outsider's perspective that you're constantly looking at how to improve it.
Guys on.
And it's not just the food you're serving, but it's also the prep time of the food you're serving as well. So for anyone that's thinking about owning a food truck, what is the one biggest mistake that you see almost every food truck that fails that you know of make?
A few. Over chef. A lot of trucks want to make culinary statements. And much like our conversation before, you can either be right or you can be happy. Mm-hmm. With a food truck, you either want to make money or you want to make a culinary statement, because you can't do both.
And what's wrong with the culinary statement? What gets lost?
Well, time is really what it comes down to. The trucks that I've seen fail that over chef their product, a lot of them had amazing products, but it took too long. So, if you're a downtown truck or you're a food truck rally truck or wherever you are, if you're a truck that's going to, make a product, whether it's salmon, shrimp, whatever it is, if it's going to take 5-10 minutes to make a product, then you're going to sell 4 an hour. And if you're only there for an hour and a half, you got 6 customers.
Yeah, that's not gonna pay the bills.
And that's not going to keep the lights on. So,
do you think though the people that will come to your food truck, whether you're at a rally or you're at a neighborhood party, wherever you may be set up, there's also a bit of a mindset that they appreciate and expect the food to be done fast, hot, and ready to go. They don't want to wait for 15 minutes, no matter how good it is.
right, and that's really the secret to the success is, for what we do, it starts with the ingredients. We buy the best ingredients on the market. We don't chintz at all. We use fresh produce. We buy the best right away, and we do the work off the truck. So when we bring it onto the truck the day of, it's ready to go. It's go time. It's show time.
See, and that's another thing I'm glad you brought up, because I think it needs to be stated that the food truck, again, is more than just the truck itself when you're there and you've got the food. You guys are also working sometimes, you and Deb are chopping and doing fresh produce the day before to get everything ready to go if you have a big weekend. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you just show up and the food magically appears and you sell it and you're done. There's a lot of work that goes into it well before you actually see the customers.
Right.
Do you think that is one of the things that people that want to open a food truck don't see?
Yeah, I think that, I still have a picture of myself outside of Fork in the Road, and that was really one of the first trucks that came out in the cities, and that I walked up to, and I sat there while I was at the Pioneer Press, and I watched this never-ending line of people come up to this truck and stand there for 10-15 minutes, it's like the line never ended, and I just went, $10, $10, $10, $10, $10, $10, $10, $10.
Right.
And I said, okay, how how can I make sure I can serve all of them? Because they were doing a great job. I don't want to take it away from them. They were doing a great job. They were the key to success on the truck is to the person in the windows just keep taking the money and keep taking the tickets and the orders, and then the cook obviously needs to keep up and fire it out as fast and fresh as possible. So they were doing a great job. So I watched them for half an hour, and I said, yeah, I want to do that. But I had a background already. I already knew in the back of my head, food costs and time and procedures and, hot tables and process. And I saw this in the back of my head already. So I already had a good feeling of, a good idea of what I was going to do.
And it helped to be involved in some of that earlier on, even if it wasn't a truck.
Right. It's like me looking at real estate going, I love to, run around and show people houses. That's awesome. I could do that all day long.
Exactly. Yeah. I get that a lot. So COVID hits.
Okay.
Now, typically you guys take the winter off, and that's when you vacation and you do stuff at home and all the things that you do, because your season starts usually in February when you go to the Minneapolis home show. Is that middle of February?
Well, we've
late
got
February?
November, December, January, and February. We have shows in one every month.
Oh, okay. I
Yep,
didn't know you
yep.
had something in January.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Actually, November too.
okay, so you're just, you're
But we only
winter,
do one
spring-
show per month throughout the winter.
Yeah.
Right.
And so now it's starting to go, and you're like, COVID hits.
Right.
Restaurants shut down. Everyone's staying home. People are losing their
World
jobs.
closes.
Yeah, the world shuts down. So how do you reinvent yourself? What did you do over the course of the last 6 to 8 weeks to keep things moving? Because now you're back in work mode. You got to earn.
Well, it was interesting. We usually, in a normal year, and again, we've been doing this since 2011, we would book everything from, usually things start trickling in around January, February, the valve kind of turns on, and by March, you've got your whole summer built through October. And then you'll leave, occasional weekends open and fill up as you go. And of course, don't forget to take time off. There was months in June and July where we had 2 days off in the month.
Wow. That's,
So-
so it's hard work,
So
too.
when people are, Monday, or thank God it's Friday, it's
another day to
all
you.
day to me. It's
Yeah.
all the day. There's no difference between them. So
So how did you reinvent yourself? What are you doing?
With my background, I come from a sales and marketing background. So we had to find the spots. We had to find the business. The food trucks are so popular in every state. No matter where you go, they're so popular, and there's such a demand for them. I mean, I could have 3 trucks and
Keep them booked.
keep them all booked. That disappeared, and literally in 1 week. We booked from January through October. We had booked a lot of stuff, and it literally in 1 week, it was gone. It was devastating. Some trucks rolled over and died. Some are for sale, but it's just not my blood. So we started looking. We had given up the brewery circuit, so we don't do breweries anymore, but they were gone. Our bread and butter was corporate and corporate gigs and special events. So those were gone. So we're really kind of left with the street, and we were fortunate enough to hook up with Fleet Farm in Lakeville, and they graciously allowed us to come park in their parking lot.
And a lot of your regulars are finding you.
A lot of our regulars hunted us down for the pretzels, even if just for the pretzels, which we got to get in bake. But it was very overwhelming. It was very humbling to see the support. They really wanted specifically us to make it through this, and still to this day I'll get texts, where are you guys going to be? You're going to be at Fleet Farm today, you're going to be at this week. It's humbling. It's really cool feeling. But so we started parking at Fleet Farm for a while, and the spring really didn't even start. I mean, there was still snow, but we had pretty good weather. It was in the 40s.
Yeah.
So, so we were hanging out as often as we could when the weather would allow. And, we've got a lot of friends that ride bikes. They wanted a place to stop, and they'd make it a point to stop there and grab something to eat, and off they'd go. And we're right down the road from Harley Davidson. We know them, and Leo's South. I have friends at Leo's. We parked there, and it was it just kind of evolved into this keep it local
Right, which
kind
is
of
fantastic.
mentality,
Yeah.
and it's the bikes would drive by from the freeway to us, and they knew us from being at Leo's and Harley and
Yeah.
Fleet Farm, and we'll go back to these places, but it really worked. And it just kind of things started opening up a little bit, and some businesses started calling us back, and and things started happening, grad parties, and it. I think we're going to be okay. I think the
so,
world
too.
will be all right. I think we'll get out of this.
Yeah, and so you're doing Fleet Farm, you've done some Costco things, you're doing some different businesses like that. You've been called by different businesses to come in and feed their employees, which I think is great, but you're also available for neighborhood parties, and then obviously when things get rolling again, weddings, graduations, whatever might come. So you're out there and you're available. So where can people find out about where you're going to be?
TheHeavyMetalGrill.com. Click on the truck, tour dates.
And
Our
that'll tell you
schedule's right
everything you
there.
need to do.
Yeah, we when we're at Fleet Farm, we usually 99% of the time, if I don't forget, we'll post it on Facebook.
Yes.
But that's Fleet Farm is kind of a weather dependent. So if the weather's good, we're going to be there. Or if we don't have something going on. But yeah, they're definitely our go-to. Fleet Farm's been very supportive.
Well, and one of the things too that I want people to know that was really important to me in doing this hashtag This Is My City series is I am interviewing people who I know, that I've met, that I've gone to their businesses, that I've supported their businesses. Those are the folks who are going to be on this show. So Marty and Deb do a great job. The food is really, really good. They have some tacos that are unbelievable. Their Philly cheese sandwiches are great. Their pretzels that Marty didn't even get into. So get out there and give them a try. The food is always fresh, it's always hot, and it's always really good. So if you got nothing to do on a weekend, find out where they are and drive by and see them, and make sure you tell them that you saw this on hashtag This Is My City. So Marty, thanks for joining me
on.
today.
Thank you for having me.
Again to this week's sponsor, Hi-Fi Heron Records, where music is fashion, located in downtown Minneapolis near Loring Park. You can reach them at 612-486-5900.